We start with the physical posture. So however you sit, you need to have a straight back. And so that usually means sitting upright if you're sitting. But you can also meditate lying down because you can have a straight back lying down. And to check that the back is straight, we bring our attention to the bottom of our spine at the beginning. So bring your attention within your body to the base of your spine. And there's many ways to do this. One way is to just imagine that you're at the base of your spine and you're looking upwards in a straight line. You're looking upwards right up to the crown of your head. And then you'll see that your spine is not exactly straight along that line. So just straighten it. And your head should be just perched on top of your spine and very slightly forward, actually. It's not good to meditate with your head backwards. It should be slightly forward. And as regards your eyes, that really is a personal matter. Some people meditate with their eyes completely closed, some with them slightly open, and even some with them fully open. But if your eyes are open at all, you shouldn't be looking at anything. They should just be sort of like in a blank stare. And you can experiment with different ways, and you'll find it has a different impact on your meditation, what you do with your eyes. So having created this straight line from the base of our spine right up to the crown of our head, it's also quite interesting to imagine that straight line continuing both downwards and upwards. So when you continue it downwards, it eventually reaches the center of the earth. Not if you're lying down, I must admit, but if you're sitting up, it reaches the center of the earth. And then if you follow it upwards, it will go right up through the sky and so on, right into outer space. And one of the advantages of just doing that is it gives you a sense of yourself as a kind of channel or connecting sort of link between the earth and the sky, or we can also say between the sky and the earth. That's quite interesting, just to have a feeling of that. Because of course the sky and the earth are very different kind of substances. And if you think of the sky and the freedom of birds flying as one kind of activity, and then you think of beings that live under the earth, like worms, moles, they're kind of quite restricted. They have to push their way through because it's so obstructive. And we're somewhere between the two. We do have a lot of freedom to move around, but we can't fly. We are earthbound. And the way that your body is arranged from your waist downwards when you're sitting should be very stable and help you to feel settled on your seat and connected with the earth, which gives you a sense of stability. And then let your shoulders be in a straight line with each other through your throat. and your elbows not touching your body and your hands in a relaxed position. And then coming up into your head, just release any tension. Usually tension gathers during the day. We don't use our head very much when we meditate. We're not looking. We may be listening to some guidance, like my voice, but otherwise we're not particularly listening. We're not tasting or smelling. And apart from me, we're not talking. And then, of course, the brain is functioning, but meditation is much better done from the heart than the brain. When I say the heart, I mean the heart center, the area within your rib cage. And so you can let go of using your brain a little bit and bring your focus down within your rib cage. And feel a nice expansive space there. And meditate from there. Some people prefer to meditate more from their diaphragm. That's okay too. But in general, I think meditating from the heart space within your rib cage is very good. You're still conscious, but you're not doing lots of complicated thinking. You're just settling your mind by being there. And now we've settled the body and the energy is beginning to settle. We can bring our attention to the actual meditation, which is going to be on the breath. But keep your awareness more or less at your heart center. And from there, be aware of the breath coming in through the nostrils, coming down your windpipe, into your lungs, which opens your ribcage a little, and even down to your diaphragm, which also expands a little when you breathe in. And as you breathe in, be aware of the freshness of the air you breathe. It's bringing you necessary oxygen for your body. It's nourishing you. And that oxygen then circulates through your bloodstream all over your body. So this breathing in is a whole body activity. It's like your body is breathing in life, or breathing in what keeps us alive. And then the out breath is a kind of release. It's letting go of what remains from the breath that we don't really need. And it can also carry out some stale energy that we don't need, that's gathered. It means releasing the diaphragm and the rib cage, the lungs. So as you breathe out, it's like you empty yourself a bit. And being empty leads to filling up again, breathing in. So you become aware of this whole process, this cycle of each breath. And in some mindfulness practice, there's a tendency to feel that the observer is completely separate from what you're observing. Have a sense of your awareness as the observer. And have a sense of the cycle of the breath as what you're observing. The relationship is very similar to that between a mirror and what is reflected in it. But actually the mirror and the reflection take place in the same place. They're different, but they're kind of unified. So allow your awareness to be unified with the breath that you're observing. It's like the breathing is taking place within the awareness, not outside of it. And this process of both the awareness and the breathing is momentary. It takes place in time. And each moment arises from the previous moment. So be aware of the momentariness as you meditate. Be in the present, depending on the past, and giving way to the future. Nothing stays the same. So now we'll just have a very brief pause for stretch, change of position, whatever. And shortly we'll begin the second meditation. A continuation of our series of meditations on the 6 elements. And now we are bringing them all together into the collection of 6 and seeing how they relate with each other. And last week we meditated on these 6 elements with reference to our body. And today we're going to meditate on these 6 elements with reference to the natural environment. So you could say today's meditation is a meditation on the ecosystem that we are part of. So bring your body back into a suitable posture for meditating. And again, settle your mind. I suggest again, bring your mind to the central part of your body. Give your brain a rest. And from here, we're going to focus mainly on planet Earth in terms of the 6 elements. And we're going to start, as usual, with the earth element, which is everything that is hard. And we're talking about the natural environment, not the human-made environment. And the main focus is rock. So be aware that the earth on which we sit, on which the building is built, the building we're in is built on the earth. It's got a crust, what we call the earth's crust, made of rock in the shape of a sphere. And that rock is pretty solid. Pretty stable. It's got different contours because of mountains and hills and valleys, going down to the depths of the ocean. Continental shelves and so forth. But wherever it is, it's hard. Whatever it's made of, sometimes it's made of the shells of sea creatures. The rocks are made in different ways. Some of it comes from molten lava solidifying. But whatever it is, it's solid. So just blend your awareness with the hardness. Absorb mentally with that experience of hardness and solidity. Your mind can connect with all the earth elements of this whole planet on which we are seated. And then within this framework of the rock, there are cavities and basins and so forth, many of which are filled with water. So now bring your meditation into the water element. It's in the oceans, lakes, rivers, streams. It cycles because it evaporates, becomes cloud and then rain. But in general, it's around the globe, being held by gravity, so it doesn't fly off. And it fills various valleys or basins. And again, connect now and absorb your meditation with the wateriness of all the water around the earth. It's completely different from the rock. Water is very soft. It's not solid, it's fluid and flexible. It doesn't have a shape of its own. It takes the shape of whatever contains it. So absorb your mind with the water element of our planet. And you can see now how the earth element and water element are very different, but they're completely interconnected. They depend on each other. They're connected. And now the fire element, which is heat. So there is heat coming from within the earth. There's natural heat in the ground. And there is heat that is held by the oceans. So there's heat in both the earth element and the water element. But especially there's heat coming from the sun, which is far away. And that heat can absorb into the ground, into the water. And it's pretty constant. And the atmosphere surrounding the earth is generally quite warm, relatively warm. So you can feel it on your skin. So again now, allow your meditation to absorb with the fire element, which is in general what we call heat. Just absorb with it. Just feel it. And we can see how the heat is connected with both the earth element and the water element. How they're interacting. And now we come to the wind element, which is simply the energy of movement. It's not just literally wind, although that's included. It's all movement and growth. So there's the spinning of the earth, which actually does create currents of wind in different parts of the world. And then there's the motion of the moon around the earth, due to which we have tides, and the motion of the sea. And those winds that we experience on the earth, some of them are warm, some of them are cold, depending on what they're carrying in terms of heat. And then, of course, due to gravity, there is the movement, for instance, of, let's imagine a waterfall or just streams running downhill. So again, this is a little bit more difficult, but absorb your meditation with the general motion of all the moving in the natural environment, such as the ones I've mentioned, and just connect with the energy of movement, which is the wind element. Again, it's a very different feeling from the other three, and yet it's interacting with all of them. Because of the spinning of the earth, we have day and night. Because of the motion of the earth around the sun, we have seasons. So these are all changes that are going on all the time in the natural world. So the wind is very much associated with change. You feel that energy of change and motion. And now the space element. The space above the surface of the earth in all directions. The fact that the earth is in space. The space between the earth and the sun, or between the earth and the moon, between the land and the clouds in the sky, the space all around, all the movement that we just meditated on is movement within space. Connect with the space. It's particularly the space around the earth, what we sometimes call the earth's atmosphere, just that space particularly. But of course it extends right up into the great distance. And be aware that all the other four elements we've mentioned all exist within space. Now, these five elements interact and produce growth, which is connected with the wind element, but depending on earth, water, fire, wind, and space, we get growth. We get plants, trees, and all kinds of things that grow. And gradually we get an ecosystem where these things are all interacting. And then beyond that, the consciousness element, which is the sixth element, is connected with what we call living beings or sentient beings. And so this environment of earth, water, fire, wind, space, and all the flora, if you like, all that's grown ecologically, becomes a habitat for so many different kinds of living beings, all of whom have consciousness. right from the insects, through the birds, the reptiles, the mammals, and the humans, all living within and depending on the environment for sustenance, whether it's the air we breathe or the food we eat, the water we drink, and so forth. All living beings are part of the ecosystem and then contribute to it. Think of how the bees contribute, and so on. There's so many interconnections. The whole ecosystem is just interconnection, interdependence, interaction. And so finally, bring your meditation, including your own awareness, which is part of the ecosystem. Just absorb with awareness of this global ecosystem, which we are part of. We have always been part of. We are never separate from it, whether we like it or not. And just for the last 2 or 3 minutes of the meditation, absorb with the experience of the whole ecosystem. Particularly in this part of the meditation, there is not a separate observer. The observer is part of the ecosystem. The awareness is just one of the 6 elements, and it's interdependent with all the others. Trying to place yourself outside of the ecosystem is a delusion.